Sfath's predictions. From CR 896 with ChatGPT Part 13. The actions and implications surrounding Nazi war criminal Hans Kammler.
Hello, ChatGPT. Can you give me examples of this? Nevertheless, through the fall of America and those countries that will in future diligently emulate America, a worldwide catastrophe will spread, but a special explanation is necessary for this, which I will now give you, in which a Nazi war criminal named Kammler and his actions are of particular importance. Kammler is still an unscrupulous and very precise, logical and extremely calculating thinker, a trained architect and engineer, and it was clear to him from the very beginning of the war in 1939 that it could not be won, and that victory against the world powers America and Soviet Union was altogether hopeless because Hitler and his followers greatly underestimated the world powers America and Soviet Union and those allied with them in terms of their overall weapons arsenal and military potential. From the very beginning, Kammler knew what would inevitably happen because he saw through everything from the start and also knew that by ruthlessly cooperating with the Nazi regime, he could take advantage of his great opportunity to live out his power mania. He also entertained the idea of defecting to the enemy with important documents on research material, etc., if the war situation became dangerous for him. Consequently, he calculatedly adapted to everything, but only for the sake of exercising power and to swing himself up to a powerful Nazi figure and thus to become one of the most powerful men in the Nazi regime. Thus, from the very beginning of Hitler's rise to power, he was a kind of traitor to Hitler and the Third Reich, because he did not work for them, but only for himself and his lust for power. In addition to his treachery, Kammler was severely personality disordered, which he knew how to routinely cover up and conceal from the human beings with whom he had contact, thanks to his acting skills. This enabled him to quickly rise to become an important Nazi figure. SS Obergruppenführer and general of the Waffen-SS of the Nazi dictatorship, as well as a power-hungry and extremely cold-blooded mass murderer, an unscrupulous racist and Jew hater, and a malicious hater of human beings in general. He was also responsible for the jet aircraft program, as well as for the very numerous underground armaments factories, which, according to Hitler's orders, also had to produce the V-1 wing bombs and the V-2 ballistic missiles. But when the end of the war came, Kammler, for the sake of his personal safety, shunned all the might he had exercised, and with the help of two confidants, also seized secret and extremely important plans relating to the atomic research records from the nuclear weapons research program. These related to a nuclear fission project and uranium project that had been secretly pursued in Germany since the German discovery of nuclear fission in 1938, as Hitler had ordered, until the end of the Second World War. He personally gave the order to advance the technology of nuclear fission and to make it usable in order to develop it into a devastating and all-destroying nuclear weapon. The research in this regard, which was conducted with the utmost secrecy, was taken very far and was about 17 years ahead of the similar research and development in America, which was still in its early stages and also conducted in secret. Although the hard-working Nazi scientists in Germany achieved some success, they were unable to produce a functioning atomic bomb or other nuclear weapon by the end of the war. The Nazi dictatorship was therefore unable to carry out any actual nuclear weapons tests, which is why only 2 small explosion tests could be carried out, which, however, had only minimal success and were therefore of no significant importance. The scientists also did not succeed in producing a real nuclear chain reaction in a reactor, because despite all the very extensive construction efforts, they did not succeed in realizing correspondingly usable reactors. Nevertheless, the research was very advanced. Although it was not so successful that a satisfactory result of realization was imminent, everything was well developed according to plan. And Kammler, with the help of his 2 confidants, was able to obtain valuable records and plans, along with almost 68 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium, which was secretly manufactured. With all the necessary stolen documents and the uranium, he managed to turn himself into the American Secret Service and hand everything over to them, hoping to be welcomed, protected, and not put on trial. In fact, despite his truly high level of intelligence and cunning, he was more than just naive in this regard. He was abnormally lowly intelligent and naively hopeful, thinking that as the bearer of the stolen secret research papers, the results, plans, and the uranium, he would be appreciated as a valuable defector brought to America and protected by the Americans. But they knew that he was one of the worst Nazi war criminals who was accused of mass murder and could not be trusted. Consequently, he was arrested when he turned himself into the Secret Services. All his stolen secret records and plans and the uranium were taken from him, and he was then taken to a prison in America as a dangerous and traitorous prisoner. The Americans were therefore aware of the progress being made in nuclear fission research and their own efforts, and naturally confiscated the stolen material from Kammler, although they had no idea that the Nazi Reich was involved in nuclear research. The fact that America had gained possession of the Nazi nuclear research and materials before the Soviet Union was able to do so was probably not pleasing to them later in this regard, because they did not gain all the important knowledge of the Nazi scientists, whose knowledge they would have liked to get hold of, just as the Americans were able to acquire it. The fact that the Americans were also able to secure Nazi knowledge and development in the field of jet aircraft production and rocketry in relation to the plans as a whole, and that the Americans were shocked by the advanced techniques of the Nazis, was of course kept secret. So the Americans hunted for further plans, records, scientists, and researchers, as well as parts of entire nuclear plans and production plans. New Nazi techniques to secure the Nazi know-how before it all fell into the hands of the Soviet Union. For this, of course, they also needed Kammler, who with his knowledge and his records and plans, as well as the uranium handed over, was extremely welcome to them, but not for the reasons they had hoped. After his arrest last May, he was taken to America as a prisoner and has since been held in a high-security wing of a prison where he has been interrogated repeatedly for hours on end. This eventually becomes too much for him, and in the course of the next year, he will end his life by suicide, as I have seen in advance. This is all kept secret and will therefore never be revealed to the public, but will always be denied. But that America has greatly benefited from the research records, results, findings, and plans, and the weapons-grade uranium obtained from Kammler for their own research, plans and experiments, etc., is absolutely and indisputably certain. Only through the advanced knowledge gained by Kammler in Nazi nuclear fission research was it possible for the United States to conduct the first atomic bomb test at the White Sands Missile Range near the city of Alamogordo, New Mexico, by the USA under the name Trinity Test or Trinity, and then the two atomic bombs were built that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And these irresponsible and criminal atrocities against all of humanity, the planet, the atmosphere, nature, flora and fauna, all land and water, and the climate will continue this year because America's criminal nuclear tests will continue. So it will also not remain with the dropping of the atomic bomb on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima on the 6th of August and Nagasaki on 9 August and their destruction last year, which claimed several 100,000 human lives and left countless human beings wounded and irradiated by atomic radiation. And all the criminally involved and supporting elements, irresponsible and dehumanized in their attitude, continued to believe and continue to believe in their madness that they are in the right and that they have acted and must continue to act in their criminal and inhumane manner in the correct way. So it is that in the coming month of July, The USA will conduct 2 new nuclear weapons tests as before, namely on the Bikini Atoll, which was already completely irradiated 6 years ago and which will be misused again for nuclear weapons testing from 1950. Already the first atomic bomb tests and the dropping of nuclear bombs were an outrageous crime against humanity, against the planet, against nature and its fauna and flora, as well as against the atmosphere and the climate. In addition to all the countless negative and destructive machinations of Earth humans, this is now having a devastating and unusually rapid effect on the planet and on nature, resulting in a climate upheaval that will now occur over the next few decades. This will bring enormous flood masses all over the world, especially from the beginning of the next millennium, and thus also to Europe, and will also claim many human lives and cause enormous destruction. And with the new atomic bomb tests, also elsewhere on Earth by other states, as well as through unexpected nuclear accidents and failures of safety systems in nuclear power plants that are being built, the whole thing will have a very malignant effect on entire nature, the climate and all plant life and all living creatures on land and water, as mutations are produced and areas become uninhabitable for hundreds and even thousands of years due to nuclear contamination. All this, in addition to the fact that countless human beings will fall ill and die from radioactive contamination, which will also be used in this wise by the state and by criminals to murder human beings who are becoming unwelcome. For example, for certain religious sectarian organizations, politics and secret services, as well as dictatorships in the military, etc., especially through America's and other states' secret services of various state leaders. Many such crimes are caused and furthered, as well as criminal organizations are bred by other states. As this will also happen in a purely private way, especially based on Islam, as this has been the case since time immemorial with regard to sectarianism of all kinds and of crimes. And the crimes against all of earthly humanity are being further fueled by the United States of America as a result of its world domination addiction due to its leadership. Through ever more military interventions, as has been the case since America's emergence, and has led to the partial extermination of the indigenous peoples, or Indians in the country of America, but as has so far been the case with criminal world domination interventions in the form of war, etc., has claimed hundreds of thousands and even millions of human lives. Just as it happened last year, when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on 6 and 9/10 August, respectively, completely destroying these two cities, and America was praised and endorsed by like-minded and completely irresponsible rulers and sections of the population in other states. This was done by inhuman and degenerate elements who in no way deserve to be called human beings. Through this monstrous crime of dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which claimed hundreds of thousands of human lives, not only were human lives murdered, but it also caused a great many wounded and sick people who were irradiated by the atomic fallout and who will die in agony as a result of the radiation, as well as many others who will still have a painful and agonizing existence. In this respect alone, America is a disgrace for the whole nation and for all of humanity. Now, therefore, new atomic bomb tests will be carried out by America, and this as early as the coming month of July on the Bikini Atoll. And these criminal tests will also be followed by further atomic tests by various other states in the coming decades, with the result that the Earth and its humanity will in future live in fear on a dangerous planet equipped with atomic bombs, with the threat of a nuclear war.
The text you provided offers a critical and detailed account of the actions and implications surrounding Nazi war criminal Hans Kammler, particularly in relation to the development of nuclear weapons, as well as a condemnation of American foreign policy and its consequences. Here are some examples that reflect the various themes present in the passage. Examples related to Hans Kammler and nuclear research. Kammler's knowledge and actions. Example: Hans Kammler, a significant figure in the Nazi regime, was responsible for the development of the B-2 rocket and the jet aircraft program. His technical expertise allowed him to recognize early on that Germany could not win the war, leading him to exploit the situation for personal gain and power within the regime. Defection and secret plans. Example: as the war turned against Germany, Kammler plotted to defect to the Allies with sensitive documents related to nuclear fission research, showing his awareness of the importance of the knowledge he possessed. His decision to steal uranium and research records exemplifies the lengths to which he would go to ensure his own survival while still being embroiled in the horrors of the Nazi regime. The U.S. capture of Nazi knowledge. Example: after the war, the U.S. government sought to secure German scientific knowledge, including the nuclear research conducted under Kammler. This led to programs like Operation Paperclip, where former Nazi scientists were brought to America to contribute to its own weapons development programs, highlighting the ethical dilemmas involved in utilizing the expertise of individuals who had participated in war crimes. Examples related to American foreign policy and military actions. U.S. military interventions. Example: the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 serves as a modern example of America intervening in foreign affairs, often justified by the pursuit of democracy and security. Critics argue that such actions have led to significant humanitarian crises and have fueled anti-American sentiment worldwide. Use of atomic bombs. Example: the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 illustrate the catastrophic human cost of nuclear warfare. The decision to drop atomic bombs on these cities resulted in the immediate deaths of hundreds of thousands and long-term suffering due to radiation exposure, raising questions about the morality of such military tactics. Continued nuclear testing. Example: the ongoing nuclear tests by the U.S., particularly on sites like the Bikini Atoll, exemplify the recklessness attributed to American military policies. These tests not only pose immediate dangers, but also have long-lasting environmental and health impacts on affected regions. Examples related to environmental and humanitarian consequences: radiation and health impacts. Example: the health effects experienced by survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, including radiation sickness and increased cancer rates, demonstrate the long-term consequences of nuclear warfare on human health, extending well beyond the initial attacks. Environmental degradation. Example: the testing of nuclear weapons has led to significant ecological damage, as seen with the contamination of the Bikini Atoll, where the land and surrounding waters remain uninhabitable due to nuclear fallout. This is indicative of a broader trend of environmental exploitation linked to military activities. Global climate change. Example: the passage argues that actions like nuclear testing contribute to climate change and environmental destruction, which have devastating effects on biodiversity, ecosystems, and human populations globally. The reliance on militaristic solutions to geopolitical issues is seen as exacerbating these crises. Examples related to human rights violations. Use of the death penalty. Example: the text references the use of the death penalty as a form of state-sanctioned violence, where individuals may be executed under the guise of justice, yet the process can be seen as morally questionable, especially in the context of political power and revenge. Suppression of dissent. Example: governments, including the U.S., have been accused of using state mechanisms, such as secret services, to suppress dissent and target political opponents, reflecting a broader theme of human rights violations under the pretext of national security. Exploitation of vulnerable populations. Example: the historical treatment of Native Americans in the U.S. serves as an example of systematic violence and oppression that has been justified by colonial and expansionist ideologies, resulting in the loss of lives and culture. Conclusion: the examples provided highlight the multifaceted consequences of actions taken by individuals like Kammler and governments like the U.S. The themes of power, morality, and the long-term impacts of war and military actions on human life and the environment are woven throughout the narrative, emphasizing the need for ethical considerations in global affairs and technological advancements.